Well, while the majority of the grain farmers got the crop laid by, probably heading to the lake just about every weekend from here to harvest, us cotton farmers, our season is just beginning. Alright, what we are out doing today is what we will be doing a lot of the rest of the season, spraying cotton. Cotton has entered that reproductive phase where you've literally got something attacking it, trying to reduce yield from here until the time we defoliate it, and we're just trying to manage those pests and help the cotton plant retain just as much fruit as we possibly can. And no, I wasn't digging at the grain farmers in my opening comment. It's just kind of a common joke that all grain farmers got to do is, you know, burn down, plant, fertilize, spray a post-emerge, maybe make one more insecticide application or fungicide application the rest of the year, and then harvest and spend most of the summer at the lake. Now, I know that's not true. Just kind of poking fun. You know, I farm grain myself. I know how much work's in there. But when you're talking about cotton, it's a completely different beast than farming grain. It requires a lot more trips across the field, a lot more attention to the crop, because pretty much every step of the way from the time you put that cotton seed in the ground to the time you harvest it, there is something trying to hurt or destroy your cotton crop. And if you miss a week without paying attention, you can go from having great yield prospects to a disaster in a hurry, because insects can absolutely move in and put a hammering on your crop in no time flat. Way worse than, say, corn, soybeans, or wheat. And for that reason, we employ a crop scout. A lot of farmers employ crop scouts to look at their crops, but in cotton it's especially critical because they come out here every single week and sweep the crop and determine, you know, how many pests we have out here, what kind of mixture of pests we have out here, and help us determine what the right insecticide is to put out for, you know, the pest we're trying to target. Whereas, you know, crop scouts for other crops, like my cotton scout, he also scouts my soybeans. Well, he scouts my soybeans once every 2 weeks. I know a lot of other scouts, you know, they don't even scout the crop quite that much. And like for corn, you know, I don't even employ a crop scout for my corn because, you know, there's really not a whole lot that, you know, you really need to watch for as far as insects. There are a few, but in general, you can go out there and check for them real easy. You know, you can check for disease real easy, all that kind of stuff. But in cotton, it's really critical to have a good qualified scout to be able to determine when you've reached the, you know, that economic threshold where you need to spray insecticides. Because, you know, if you spray insecticides too much, well, for one thing, you're running up unnecessary costs. Two, you're also building resistance. So, you know, on our farm, we practice IPM, integrated pest management, and they got time-proven thresholds for insects in your fields on determining when you know, economically it's time to apply an insecticide. So I think this week on my original cotton that we didn't have to replant, we're in the 3rd to 4th week of squaring, and Cotton Scout said we were running, I think, 12 to 16 plant bugs per 100 sweeps, which is right there, right around threshold of when you need to spray. So we got that report yesterday, got my chemicals ordered yesterday, and we're out here spraying today before we lose any more squares to plant bug feeding. And then in addition to the insecticide, we're also making our first application of plant growth regulator just to try and manage the height of the cotton. It's always important to start that early before the cotton gets real tall and rank, because you can't, once the cotton is grown, you can't shrink the cotton. But if you're proactive and apply the regulator, ahead of a big growth spurt, you can kind of manage that height to keep the distance between your nodes stacked a lot closer. We're trying to maintain about 3 inches or less internode distance on our cotton, and that makes for a very productive plant. Compact, makes it a little easier to control insects and defoliate at the end of the year. All right, we'll take a minute to show y'all what the crop looks like. Been a long time since we seen or talked about cotton, so like I said earlier, we're out here spraying for plant bugs. We're also spraying a growth regulator because it's getting that time of year. This cotton is starting to grow vigorously, and this year I vowed I was going to be a little bit more aggressive with growth regulator. Instead of waiting for it to get to the height that I want and then trying to slam it shut, I'm going to be more aggressive early on, try and stack those nodes a little bit closer, hopefully keep a little bit more compact plant, but also a plant that also retains more fruit because it's focusing more on the reproductive side than the vegetative side. So anyway, we're good. 2 days away from the 4th of July, and it's always a cotton farmer's goal here in West Tennessee to have a bloom by the 4th. We haven't done it for ages. I'm really hoping this year we will. Now, like I said, we're still 2 days away, and I'm not seeing anything obvious out here yet. Let me look at some of these little bit more developed plants and seeing what the squares and stuff look like on them. All right, looking at this plant right here. This square right here is our bottommost square. It's the oldest and most developed. It's not far away from blooming. I don't think it will bloom by the 4th. Most likely, probably, I'm guessing the 6th, 7th, maybe even July 8th. But then looking at this plant, make sure we're holding all the squares on here that the plant's put on so far. First position on right there. We lost first position right there, but we got 2nd, 3rd, and even 4th position still holding on. Go up another node, first position square still on there. Next node, first position square still on there. Get up here in the top, first position square still on there. So on this one plant, I've seen just one square that's been aborted, most likely probably due to insect feeding. So square retention is really good. It's very critical early season that these first squares, which will become the first blooms and the first bowls, we keep as many of them as possible, because those are what we call our money bowls. That's where the majority of the yield comes from. And my cotton scout who scouted this yesterday says my square retention so far has been excellent, like above 90%. And you definitely want to see above 80%, but when you get there around 90%, that's excellent. But right now, we got right at threshold plant bugs, and if we don't spray for these plant bugs, our square retention will go down along with our yield going down. So anyway, overall, I'm really excited with the way this cotton looks. We might not have a bloom out here on the 4th, or might not be able to find one. I'm pretty sure at some point here, there's probably going to be a bloom out here, but just going to be hard to find. But I think last year, outside of our one field that we didn't have to replant, I think we saw our first bloom somewhere around July 18th, July 20th. So I'd say we're easily somewhere around 2 weeks ahead of schedule on this cotton that we didn't have to replant, which I'm tickled, because that just really opens the door to really good yields, as long as everything does what it's supposed to do the rest of the year as far as rainfall and everything. Now, we are getting dry, and we have been absolutely scorching hot for 2 weeks. We're a little over 2 weeks past our last rain, And every day except for one day, those temperatures have been 96, 97, 98 degrees. Just, I mean, just absolutely blazing hot. But as you can tell, this cotton not feeling any stress whatsoever. I mean, it's we're here close to midday. It's no signs of drooping. Got a nice color to it. We've applied our nitrogen to this cotton, but we haven't had a rainfall to incorporate it. So everything you see here is just from chicken litter and the natural fertility of the soil that we've boosted by use of our cover crops. And you can tell, look in between rows. Yeah, we sprayed post-emerge, but our crop is clean as a pin. And that cover crop is also helping to shade the soil, keep the soil a whole lot cooler. And when you get as hot as it is now, the cooler the soil is, the better the plant roots can react. I know, like on a corn plant, when the soil temperature gets above 90 degrees, the root system kind of shuts down. If it's kind of shuts down, it's not pulling up nutrients, not pulling up moisture, and the above ground part of the plant is really starting to struggle. Now, a cotton plant, I'm sure it can tolerate a lot higher soil temperatures, but basically, if you keep soil temperatures in that mid to high 80s during the summer, your plant will be able to operate at maximum efficiency, which is what we want. So anyway, that's your agronomic lesson for the day. I can almost hear the plant bugs out here munching on those squares. Let's go ahead and hit them in the head and knock them back. Also, to give y'all an update on the ripping, we ripped about the middle half of this field right here. Where we're at now, we didn't rip, and then on the other side, we didn't rip, about the middle half. And visually driving across the field, I can't tell any difference yet. I can't tell any difference in height, the way the plant looks, development. I mean, it all looks good, and the proof will be in the pudding whenever we harvest. But as of right now, no visual difference in the cotton. Now, we did see a big visual difference in the cover crop, but in the cotton up to this stage, no difference yet. What we're spraying today to control plant bugs is we got our insecticide here, Centric. It's a neonicotinoid insecticide. It's very specific. It's not a real broad spectrum insecticide. So what I do is wipe out a lot of the pests that we're facing right now, with the primary one being plant bugs, but protecting a lot of the beneficial insects out there that are predators to the plant bugs. So we usually save our very broad spectrum insecticides for later in the season. Early season, we like to be a lot more targeted for our pests. We're also spraying plant growth regulator, Tepaquat chloride. This is a 6X formulation. And pretty much every pass that we make from here on out until we defoliate, we'll be putting in a growth regulator just to keep those nodes stacked, keep the vegetative growth from getting very excessive, hopefully stack it on more yield, make it a more compact plant that's easier to control the insects in when we spray. And then also whenever we defoliate, you got a real big, tall, rank plant with a lot of leaves and stems. It's real hard to get spray down in there to control any kind of insects. Well, we've been using this Simon's Innovation AccuVolume kit for all spring so far, and we're really liking it. It's really brought our accuracy on chemical mixing and applications to the next level. Like I said before, whenever we first installed it, just going by the sight glass, sight glass isn't perfect, and we're standing way down here. We could easily be 15-20 gallons off one way or the other, and applying 15 gallons an acre. We could either have an acre too much water, which would be too diluted for the chemical we're using, or an acre less water, which would be a lot more concentrated and increasing our costs. So this AccuVolume kit really worked out well. We fill it up till this says 1,000. We put 1,000 in our monitor, and I mean it's spot on. We're really liking it so far. Like I said earlier, we're hopefully in the ending stages and not the middle stages of a pretty brutal weather pattern. For the last couple of weeks, temperatures have been approaching 100 degrees. And I tell you what, it has been plumb miserable. If you've never been to Tennessee in the summer and you don't know what it feels like, I'll ask you, have you ever been cremated? Because that's about what I imagine it feels like outside. It is just, it's plumb miserable. Today's the first day I've been in AC in quite a while, and let me tell you what, I'm enjoying it. But overall, our crops are hanging on surprisingly well. You know, this weather's not doing the corn crop any favors whatsoever. You know, it's pollinating, and when you get real high temperatures during pollinating, it's never good. You run the risk of the pollen sterilizing before it actually hits the silk and pollinating the air. However, if you got you know, enough moisture, corn can generally withstand it and does okay. But I ain't gonna lie, it's starting to get dry. I mean, I have checked the corn, and it is hanging on surprisingly well. It's really only starting to twist up in the really thin areas of the field, but the rest of it in general is looking good. You know, I think what we've done building up soil health over the last decade or so is really starting to pay off, but it'll only help us for so long. I mean, eventually, I mean, you run out of water, and it don't matter what you done. And with temperatures as hot as it is now, you know, we're quickly running out of water. In general, our crops look a little bit better than what our neighbors do, who just do no-till or do conventional tillage. They're definitely handling the heat and the water stress a little bit better. That being said, I know we're in a whole lot better shape than what a lot of farmers are a little bit farther out east. You know, you get to Middle Tennessee, down into Alabama, Georgia, North Carolina. I know a lot of those farmers, if they haven't lost their crop, they're about this close to losing their crop. You know, we got a rain about 2 weeks ago that I don't think that they got, and that's what we've been subsisting on since then. And I thank the good Lord for it. But I know there's a lot of other farmers out east that are, I mean, it's not looking good for them at all. And then there's a lot of farmers up in the Midwest who are the complete opposite. They're literally drowning in water, which is, you know, that's just as bad as a drought. You know, there's thousands and thousands of acres that have been flooded and lost, and you know, we're kind of in that sweet spot. We suffered through more water than what we needed in May. We haven't lost any crops to flood, and we haven't lost any crops to drought yet. But the season's still young. I just hope and pray that good Lord sends us the weather we need, that we can make a good, profitable crop. And pray that you know, He also watches over the farmers whose crops have been devastated by either flood or drought this year. Because I'm telling you what, you know, there's a lot of hardships we face in farming, but the worst one that I've ever experienced is watching your crop die. Either a slow, painful death through drought, or a very quick death through flooding or hail, you know, whatever else. There's just so many risks we have to deal with in farming. It's impossible to prepare or deal with all of them sometimes. Well, I've seen my first problem child of the year. Now I can spot one of them a mile away. This right here is Palmer amaranth, otherwise known as a pigweed. And there's another one there. And there's another one there. You see what happens when you try to spray weeds or try to kill weeds that are too big for the chemical. We was out here about a week and a half ago with a full rate of Liberty, and you can tell, you know, it got the top part of the plant, but it didn't kill the plant completely. So if I were not out here pulling it up, this can continue to grow, produce seed, potentially seed that are more resistant to the herbicide than what this was. And then you got we're turning it from a small area to a lot bigger area, and within the space of a couple years, your field's gone. There's another one too. You know what? Herbicide might not have killed you, never be resistant to my hand. This is also going to be one of my major jobs for the next few months, scouting our crops, making sure we let none of these rascals go to seed. Zero tolerance on our farm for a pigweed. We spend a lot of time and a lot of effort, but because of that, our fields are about as clean as anybody's when it comes to this weed. This has been the worst weed I've ever seen in my entire farming career, and we cannot let them get a foothold on our farm. All right, we just got done with spraying a field of cotton, and rather than go all the way back around to get out right here, we're taking a shortcut to the corn. So I want to hop off and give you a quick glance what the corn looks like in this hot, dry conditions we're looking at. Now, as you can tell, you know, we're on some hill ground. This isn't real good, deep bottom soil right here. And look right here, we are right in the middle of pollination. I mean, got pollen shed everywhere. I'm not gonna stay out here too long because I get real itchy. You know, we got a little bit of firing up starting on our lower leaves, which, I mean, corn's needing a ton of nitrogen right now. With it dry, it just can't pull the nitrogen it needs out of the soil, and it starts, you know, robbing it from its lower leaves. But overall, I mean, this looks really good. And you say, it's about 3 o'clock right now, and I mean, it is hot out here. Leaves not rolling up. And if the leaves aren't rolling up, you know, we know pollination is going to take place. We ought to get real good pollination. I mean, this corn looks fantastic for the conditions that we are dealing with right now. Again, like I said, if we don't get a rain soon, things are going to go backwards in a hurry. But what all this residue in the cover crops that we've been practicing on this farm for years, you know, what it's doing is it's buying us a little bit more time to catch a rain. Whereas, you know, corn, once it starts going backwards, there's no playing catch up, there's no recovering that yield. So, you know, if we're getting an extra of, you know, 5-6 days of waiting time, waiting on a rain before it starts suffering damage, you know, that could mean all the difference in making fair yields or good yields, or bad yields and fair yields. You know, it's just buying us a little bit more time. You know, it's not a fix for a drought. I mean, eventually you run out of water, but our soils are able to store more water whenever we do get a rain. And then when we do get a rain, if we get a heavy pounding rain, it's able to infiltrate more of that water into the soil to store it. So, you know, we get a heavy inch rain, you know, no-till fields, you know, they might only be able to infiltrate, you know, 2 to 3 tenths of that inch, and the rest of it will run off if it becomes heavy enough. Whereas, you know, our soils, you know, we might be able to infiltrate 7, 8, 9 tenths of that inch, and that just means that much more water we can store in the soil. It'll allow us to tolerate a little bit more time before we get that next rain. So, you know, we saw 2 years ago in 2022 the effects of drought on our corn, and cover crops bought us a little bit more time, but eventually we just ran out of water and we had the worst corn we've ever had. And if the same thing happens this year, you know, we don't catch a rain, you know, nothing's going to save this corn. But if we can catch a rain in the next 3 or 4 days, you know, that's where the cover crops have really paid off, allowing our crops to hang on a little bit longer than what a no-till or conventional till environment will do. So let's pray for that rain in the next few days. You said we're 2 days away from July 4th, and kind of an old wives' tale for Tennessee. You can always count on a rain around July 4th. Might be the last rain you get all year, but usually July 4th you can count on one. And generally about every 8 out of 10 years that seems to come true.